welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by the Adam Meakin, Arwin, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Afternoon, everyone.
Let's rattle our way through housekeeping because there's a few things that need to get covered. So, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
None
No.
whatsoever.
They never claimed one. But through inference, it has to be there. But they never claimed it. It's just logic. They make no claims of logic.
Okay,
Because
then.
Arwin selfishly didn't do a show today, I was listening to 24/7 Discord. So I've just been listening to exactly that, a baller denying his geometric horizon, that it would be there. So no, not even in their world now would you expect to see it.
Well, that's good to know. We'll let Mick West know that nothing's blocking the bottoms of boats and buildings, and their side-on reified sphere-edge horizon that formerly blocked boats and buildings has never been claimed. It's in fact being denied, wouldn't you know, from your own side, Mick West. Any evidence?
What's the next step? Are they going to deny that actual spheres have geometric horizons? Is that
They've done that
next step?
already. They do that. They did that 2.5 years ago, when you pointed out that what they're describing is an edge getting in the way of something. The top edge of their sphere, they think gets in the way. The hill, the obstruction. Well, that's a sphere edge. Well, they say, well, spheres don't have edges. All right, so again, not a horizon getting in the way of boats and buildings then. Not the leading edge of something blocking something else. Okay then, thanks, Globus. Nice to know. Yeah, Earth's flat.
Isn't this a Osmond quote time at this point, Jim Osmond?
Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
But what is Earth curve? Why don't we define what Earth curve really is with the Globers? Let's get back around the table and actually clear this up. What is this Earth curve that we...
It's a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon that formerly blocked boats and buildings.
Do they agree to that?
That's what it is.
Yes, but do the Globers agree to it?
Well, when we
So if they
demonstrate
have
that,
a
when we demonstrate
have
that we
a
don't have one, then no, they don't agree to it anymore because we showed that that's not what it is. But that's what it is in the heliocentric world. It's a physical geometric sphere edge capable of blocking boats and buildings into the distance calculable inside view with geometric mathematics, i.e. Earth curve maths. That's what it is. We show it isn't what they claim it is, and they suddenly decry their own claim. Welcome to Flat Earth should be the reply.
Maybe by now they have a different version of Earth curve. Maybe they can do to it the same thing as they did to the Coriolis effect and have another form of Earth curve that can be sort of justified.
When they say, Arwin, when they say they live on the sphere with the radius, they could only have one.
We only have one horizon, and the horizon in the Earth curve mathematics is a physical geometric sphere edge horizon that blocks boats and buildings with its physicality. It's a hill getting in the way. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, not of the Earth-based variety.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No way.
What is the sun?
No idea. We were discussing it in the pre-show, or 10th Man was postulating about convergent rays and saying it must be close. I nodded along, but I didn't say it then. I'll say it now. I don't know what the sun is.
Right. So what we got of the sun is rays, although we can't truly pinpoint an origin. And we have an apparent disk that is very blinding when you look at it. And that's really all we got. Oh, yeah. And of course, the consistent angular relations in relation to position on the Earth. And that's it, right?
Well, no, not exactly. Rays don't exist. They're a construct that we invent. And what we describe, you could describe in their apparent nature as rays. Right.
Damn you! No, we have rays. It's just not a ray.
It's not parallel, it's divergent.
Who's this Ray character and what's he got to do with the sun?
I'm talking about light. I'm talking about light as seen by my eyes. I'm not talking about what makes it or how far away it is. I'm just saying what I see.
Ray has summoned the State Path Marshmallow Man. Remember? That's what he does.
Oh, dokie. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
None whatsoever.
Not in the
They
3D
don't even
world.
know what it is.
Or is that Stagoli?
Yeah, I was just referencing the conversation from Rumpus yesterday, not in the 3D world, because he's talking about 3D worlds and 4D worlds and all that crazy stuff.
All right, I see. We'd have to go into a different world to experience it. Bit like experiencing time dilation in Narnia. Something else that we can't do, but is experienced in the Narnia dimension.
It's so embarrassing, though, because like even how Rumpus reasoned it out, it's like, okay, yeah, the orbit of Mercury, it doesn't work in the math, but it will work in the other dimension, in this pseudo-Riemannian force space, even though it is completely conceptual and there's no way to test it. So what they basically did is, there should be a good expression for this in English, but they basically just gave up, put it all down, said like, yeah, we can't make it fit, so we're just going to make some kind of fantastical thing in which it will fit, to which we will never get. We will never be able to prove it.
I got news for
That's
Rumpus. I got news for Rumpus. Earth curve doesn't work within their math as well. Not just Mercury.
Yeah.
I don't know, orbital mechanics, Earth curve, it's not really involved. It's just everything is spherical. It would have to be for an orbit, or it will bump into the corners and all that.
Exactly. It's a begging the question fallacy. Orbits is a begging the question fallacy. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Pseudoscience here.
No, but with that model in mind and that discipline, I thought it was very interesting, again, coming back to the Rumpus, that he just keeps on giving, doesn't he, that boy? He keeps giving quote after quote. But for him to point out that even in the real world, that his orbit of Mercury doesn't work. Even with his maths in the real world, it doesn't work. So his maths denies it. Shows that the chances of the pseudoscientists putting together something is highly improbable, because, as Rumpus admitted yesterday, the whole mathematical premise that they're basing this model on doesn't actually work.
Yeah, and I would like to add on to that, if I may. There is a certain type of consequences, to this. It's like if there's something out of reach, you only have certain elements you can analyze about it, like the visuals, and you start to calculate for it using a certain model, and then the calculations at some point don't fit anymore when you try to round it out and make it complete. There's only one logical conclusion. The whole premise is wrong. Because otherwise you would not be ending up in a ditch. If you were actually back engineering mathematically the reality, you would never arrive at such a point. It can't happen. So the only conclusion you can derive from the orbit of Mercury not fitting is that the entire premise, the entire presupposition has to be wrong. There's no other conclusion.
Yeah, that's what Adam said. Go on, Stigoli. Say again.
I was just gonna say, and where's Mercury supposed to be again? And what's Mercury supposed to be again?
Light in the sky.
Oh, no. What's he he's saying? What's it in the heliocentric system? What are they claiming is Mercury?
Yeah, and where is it supposed to be?
Physical rock in a physical orbit around a physical sun.
Right.
That's
in a
the
vacuum.
point with Mercury, though,
So it
isn't
can-
it? With all the other.
Hold on, sorry, Adam.
Oh, mate.
We misread what his point was. Right, in a vacuum. That was your point, right?
Yeah, yep, that doesn't exist. So.
Right, so Mercury in its presumed orbit is taking place in a second law of thermodynamics violation. It's normally me that says that. Kudos. Yes, indeed. It's all
I was
taking
waiting for you
place.
to say it yesterday.
Well, indeed. Well, no, we were arguing within their fallacy and their maths.
Yep.
It's unreasonable to pull that card when I've accepted that I'm going to argue within those parameters with someone like Rumpus. Now, don't get me wrong, he'll pull every unreasonable card he can, but I, at least at some level, have to seem like a reasonable debater. I can't just say, well, this is all taking place in a second law of thermodynamics violation when I'm asking him to detail his maths. That's not fair.
I really appreciate your tolerance towards Rumpus, by the way, Nathan, because having him on the show does really bring up a lot of energy. And that's good. To not just shout him away, because of course he is going to be fallacious, So I appreciate that, Nathan.
Whatever, everyone's welcome. I don't care.
Well, isn't that in a sense what you're saying, but in the reverse order? So you can't have it work in the violation of the second law of thermodynamics, right? Violation. But then the math doesn't work when they believe it is. So they believe it is just a vacuum of space and everything works there, but the math says, no, it doesn't work. And then you say, well, it can't work anyway because it's a violation of the second law. So the answer comes out the same.
Sure. And you can conclude at that point when you're discussing somebody's reification of their maths or point it out along the discussion, but to just pull that card to draw an end to a close to a conversation that's specifically about the conversion of maths from pseudo 4 space into 3 space, you can't just halfway through that discussion say, well, the sky's not a vacuum. I mean, I could, and I'd still be right. And that's the point you're making, right, Stigully?
Yeah, but I get why you didn't, though. I was thinking that too. I was like, well, it wouldn't really, it was a good conversation. It's good to hear Rumpus use so many words and have such a fantastical story. Usually don't get to hear it because he's just repeating the same crap over and over again.
Well, that's the majority of that's only been available to members, so that actually goes out tonight on the second channel. So subscribe today to my second channel, Nathan Oakley, which is in a link in the info box below this video. It comes out at about 9 PM or 9 PM UK time daily. There's a show that comes out at that time slot. So subscribe to my second channel. Anyway, where were we? Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? Oh, in fact, Adam, I completely forgot about you. I'm so sorry.
Well, no, to be honest, it was a similar point with regards to it. But I will just say to that last point with regards to using the vacuum, you can just go and chop his head off, with one quick slice of a samurai sword and mention vacuum. But in this case, to me, it's a lot more fun to incessantly beat him with the crowbar of mathematics with multiple blows. And beat him in his own world. It's a lot more fun. I mean, it was fun yesterday, and I'll give respect, Nathan. You did handle it. It's very frustrating. I mean, it got to gone 4 o'clock, and I'm like, he's going to go for hours. I'm going to take the dog for a walk, but he did kind of keep him on the path of him just double speaking himself very well. I thought yesterday without. Going too much. He kept succumbing to the threats of muting, which it's a sad state of affairs, isn't it? That we get to that stage that you have to be commended, or really you'll get attacked just as much. And the only reason for it is because the man can't have an honest conversation and answer a question honestly, and that's why we have to pull out those little nuggets like the admission of Mercury. It's a respect makes it's a skill, because he does lead you off very well. But
that's his job, isn't it? That's his namesake. So a disturbance, and that's a nice segue. I might forgo the rest of housekeeping just to have this discussion now, because when Dr. John D is discussing energy and he's using the word disturbance, I thought, that's quite an interesting word. Let's go and have a look at the etymology and some of the synonyms. One of the synonyms was rumpus. So I thought, all right, I'll cut and paste the etymology and just type one. There was plenty of other synonyms, obviously, but I'll just put synonym : rumpus for disturbance. That was my comment to Dr. John D. Obviously, I'd seen the information prior, so I could have put something a lot more insightful, but I just thought it was amusing because he's using disturbance in terms of the relative density disequilibrium or returning to equilibrium in his examples, but he's not using energy when he describes them. And then he points it out afterwards when you've nodded along, which I thought was great. The way he's structured that video is quite clever. He's got like it's almost salesy in the way he does it. So he's creating what's called an agreement ladder, which I love. This is a sales technique. So you get the audience in this instance to nod along with your points, and then afterwards point out that you haven't used a specific word. So you nod along, and then suddenly you're like, either your corners of your mouth will turn down and you'll feel cheated, and you're like, yeah, but it still is energy, right? It's just interesting the way he did it. I thought it was brilliant. I like that video. Shout out to you, Dr. John D. Excellent video.
It was. I'm just trying to find the phrase because it's a very polite way of doing it. Please note, there has not been any mention of the terms energy or force to describe what we observe. All are described by system equilibrium and disequilibrium. And it is exactly as you say. You go along and it forces you to agree with the concept, the description, and you're happy with it. And that's what he did with us, wasn't it? I think was checking those out. Can you disagree with this description? Asking for critique in there. But yeah, it's very... I like the way you've summarised salesy. Yeah.
Well,
I've not thought of it like that, but yeah.
It sounds almost demeaning now I've thought about it, and I don't want it to be that way, because it's one of those things that in the last 5 years, maybe a bit longer, there's been only a handful of things that have truly got goosebumps on my arm. And you've gone, wow, this is really out there, right? This is beyond my tolerance of what I thought when I considered myself a very open and skeptical person. Well, sometimes you just got to set it all aside, reassess it. Some of it might still be true. And this is one of those things that you're sort of sitting back going, my God, I don't think it would go this far. But wow, Isn't it incredible?
Yeah, but I can't disagree with it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Just if you're not already, subscribe to Dr. John D and watch his most recent 3 videos, and it'll just absolutely blow your mind, especially if you're the kind of person that came to this subject with the kind of gleeful joy and delight at not knowing stuff, at realizing that suddenly the world's your oyster. Everything that was told to Truman by his teacher was wrong. No, it hasn't all been discovered. No, it isn't all figured out. In fact, quite the contrary. In fact, many things that you think are figured out aren't. They're really crude. I think that's brilliant. It just makes me so happy. I don't know why. I just think it's a much more wondrous place that we live in as a result of people like John D exposing this stuff. And Flat Earth, the globe lie, the fake space, all of that stuff all has a similar kind of emotional reaction from me. It sets goosebumps on your arm and you go, oh my God, fake, completely fake. The sky's not a vacuum. They're not doing anything in that place. It doesn't exist. Wow. That's pretty mind-blowing when you come to change your paradigm in such a severe way. And this is another thing like that in terms of energy and how it's described. You're like, wow. Most of the time you'll find yourself a bit like atmosphere. You find yourself saying it, not realizing that you're reifying into existence a paradigm that's just part of your vernacular, whether you like it or not. The magic's part of your own language. And this is no different when you're saying things like energy and force, specifically force, because when he's tying it back at the end of the video to gravity, suddenly the whole process, the whole 3-parter makes sense. You can say, okay, right, now I know why you've gone through this convoluted process of going from disequilibrium into a claim of something having an energy input. And what is energy? What is the force? Well, it's going to be reified later on into a disequilibrium explanation that has gravity wrapped around the heliocentric model. Now, that's reasonably concise, but it requires a lot more detail, and that's precisely what Dr. John D's given in his last series. So subscribe today, Dr. John D. Big, massive props to you, my friend. I've got your screen presented with the conclusion on.
It would just to go along with what you're saying, obviously this is just one of the slides from which is the summary, so just and it's just the important bits. I think as you were saying, And accepting these points, I think, and looking at them, and make you go, oh, bloody hell. Yeah, I suppose so. Oh, bloody hell. So energy can't be proven to exist by the application of the scientific method. And these are obvious to us sometimes, but actually to stop and think about them is the interesting thing when you listen to John's thing. It does make you think. So yeah, just living with energy is not a logical antecedent to work motion. This one, I don't know whether he was chatting with you, and I don't know if he's going to go into it. But to me, the logical antecedent to work or motion, and it might sound a bit weird, is will. Whether that's me picking the brick up, my will, or whether that's the will of God setting up a dynamic system or things to happen, it all requires, a bit like the Noah, it requires a will for something to happen. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
It's a bit too deep for my taste at the moment. It's going to need a lot more text and a nice female voice over the top of it for me to accept it in any way, shape or form.
we was trying to go backwards, you know what I mean? So you're going, you need energy for this thing, but actually energy is just a requirement of it. What is the underlying factor that requires work or motion? I'd say if you apply it to any mammalian system, etc., it's got to be willpower. If you apply it to nature, then for me, fundamentally, it's the will of God. He's set that system up dynamically initially, or the will of the creator, I should probably say. It's less contentious.
To boil down what you're saying,
everything goes back to will in terms of what is the antecedent to work motion. Yeah,
well, you're essentially trying to you're saying the cause of entropy is will. That's what you're saying. And you're saying that will can only be attributable to God. That's what you're saying in essence, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we've got free will, because we can affect it. We were given that.
Wait, what?
Yeah, wait, what? Okay.
How does will relate to entropy? It's like entropy always happens. It's just that the will might, I don't know, have some kind of delaying or accelerating influence in some way indirectly.
No, I think what Adam is saying is that everything exists because of a creator's will.
What does that have to do with entropy specifically?
Because the system he developed is dynamic and it works this way. So how they get here in the first place is what he's attributing how it got all here. And
what
it
is entropy?
obeys
I don't see
free will.
Hold on, Arwin. What is entropy? Change over time. Well, that's something that it happens, and we don't have an attributable cause for why things change over time. Well, Adam's saying there's only one attributable cause, because the start of it, if you assert that there's no creator, would violate the first law, which we said earlier in the show. But how do you have a starting process? Well, he's attributing that to God. I'm saying it's a bit loose. You're saying what?
Right.
But this is Adam's explanation.
You could say that it is like a micro reflection, like a micro crystal of the entire design. Everything has a beginning and an end, and entropy is from that beginning towards that end. The very effect reflects the entire design.
I'm saying that even something as simple as a leaf falling and the work done, and how we consider that is fundamentally set up by the will of the creator. So the creator sets up the system for things to occur in that way, and then that kinetic energy will be released because of the way it was set up. But the only thing that you can, because plant systems were a bit harder to attribute a will to, and that's where you can't necessarily attribute the plant having a direct will, but the system with which the plant grows, works and functions, reproduces, is by design. So therefore it's by will. So the way in which that system works is will. The way in which volcanoes work and expend energy, do work, motion, is through the scientific, is through the method that the creation was set up with, the dynamic system for it to occur, the knock-on effects of one to affect the other. It's all initially can be traced back to an initial will that this will happen. Entropy being one of those wills that this will happen like that. We can play little effects in there, animals play little effects, but the overall will is still there. But we've been given some free will within that to do work and motion.
Okay. It needs work.
I don't necessarily agree.
I think
that's more my.
Hang on, Adam. So if we figure out what cryogenics is, freezing, don't we delay entropy? So there's your point. We have a little bit of wiggle room, is what you're saying.
No. You don't delay it. It's proportional to time, and you can slow the rates, but it doesn't delay the rates. Delay and slow are different
what's slow
things.
the rates and delay? What's the difference between what I meant by delay versus slow the rate?
It's changed the route, isn't it? It's changed the route, the entropic route that it will follow more than anything, and that is that requires will, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, just for the semantic fact of it, yes, you're right. Because if you have a bus as an example, and you say, right, well, if I slow the bus from 30 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour, I'm delaying it. Well, yeah, but it also could imply that you've stopped it entirely, which is why I don't like the word delay. That's the only reason I objected. Sorry, 10th man.
Change the route, Arlo.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree with the synonym you used. That's fine.
You can make it faster, can't you? So just changing the route, I think, is fine. You don't necessarily, if you do something to something, you may positively or negatively affect that rate of change. So just changing the route is sufficient. But in doing that, you've got to apply work motion, however you want to then consider that. And fundamentally, the thing that is the antecedent, the most prime antecedent of all of that is your will. It goes back down to you saying, yeah, I'm going to pick that brick up.
Yeah, I could give you an example now. I started a fire this morning in the wood stove to heat up the house. And by leaving the front door of the wood stove open a little bit, enough oxygen gets in, and it's a blazing blowtorch kind of a fire. And then once the wood catches fire, then I close the door, hit the vent draft to the smallest amount, and the thing goes for 3-4 hours. But if I left it open, it'd be done in 45 minutes. So I can cause it to have entropy quick or slower.
Okay, so you're saying it's your will outside of nature to create the disequilibrium, and without that you just have the harmonious balance or cycles, and you're just creating a disequilibrium within nature. So the examples, like picking up a brick, really make sense now, are your examples that are very unnatural to begin with.
Yeah, we're not within the will of the creator for how that entropy will play out from creation to the end. That there's a route there, but we're allowed that fiddling.
No, I like this. This is getting somewhere. I like this a lot. This is getting somewhere. In other words, if you've got a balance or a cycle or whatever you want to call it, and you've got somebody with free will, you can disorder it. You can change it. That's a lot of power to have, right?
Yeah. You're affecting the route, but
well, that's where accountability comes in too, because now we're involved.
That's where power comes in. So you have
that too.
what he's saying is, you can give it as a simplistic example. You can splash the water and create a minor change, but you can do much bigger things and change the order, change the rate of entropy. But it means that in order to do that, you've got to interject in some way. And in order to first decide that you're going to interject, you've got to have the will to do it, is what Adam's saying. I like it. I didn't at first. I like it now.
I love it.
Yeah. Paddle on, paddle off.
Yeah, that's what I was picturing when you were saying this exactly. I didn't want to say paddle, but yeah, because now I've got it visually. But yes, you can turn the motor on. You can create the motor. You can physically make the thing to make this disequilibrium take place. My example is just splashing it with your hands, but the same principle applies, right?
Yeah.
Any more to add on this? Or just one more prop and shout out for Dr. John D?
No, I just distinguish what I've said necessarily from John's thoughts. They're my additions, those latter bits. I don't think he's necessarily, we've nattered for a bit, but I wouldn't necessarily attribute them to him. They're my ramblings on it, if you know what I mean.
I'm very pleased that you shared your ramblings live on air with us, and we got to some point where we could actually see eye to eye, and it made a bit of sense. Excellent stuff. Any more on Dr. John Dee's video? I know you keep flashing up a few slides. I'll stop.
No, I'll just put in the thought bot. I like that one. I thought I'd end on the thought bot.
Right. Excellent. We've got a couple more housekeeping. Hey, Chocolate. Very well. We have actually got a couple of last housekeeping questions. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
Nope.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Come on, Chocolate.
RIP radius.
That's it. That concludes housekeeping.
Yeah, Chocolate, your sound is a little like through
Yeah, no, I'm on my Bluetooth today.
Yesterday's show, as I say, is going to come out on the Nathan Oakley channel later on this evening, if you're watching this live. So check it out. It's one of those that when I go back and actually spend time reviewing the show after it's finished, I tend to think it's a better show. I've gone out of my way to watch it more than once and will undoubtedly be sat in the chat watching it with you. Yeah, check it out. 1333 is the number. Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show on the Nathan Oakley channel. Be here or be sphere. Also, another shout out to Dr. John D for his most recent series.
Yes, kudos on that show. 1333 was one of the best. Everyone tune in. Nathan, you did great. Rumpus, thank you, because the housekeeping questions are very basic questions that anyone who wants to challenge the heliocentric model, sphere Earth with a radius of 3959 should be able to ask. And if it was true, should be able to be answered very quickly and succinctly. And Rumpus, you did a good job of obfuscating and double talk. And the very thing you want to prove, your model, cannot be proven. So if you want to hear it, come to that show.
So, Arwin, why didn't you go live today?
Because I overslept. I basically woke up when the show should have started up. And I was in a grumpy mood, and I was like, no, I'm not going to rush everything and then be all out of whack. So I just went for grocery shopping immediately. It was actually good to start off the day just getting some physical, some biking out there. So I don't regret it. But I will try to be back tomorrow with the Flat Earth Early Bird show as normal. So
Jolly good. Happily for me, I was actually busy, so I didn't notice it wasn't on. Otherwise, I would have asked before.
right, I got some questions in Skype chat. No, I'm all right.
Got a general question that I want to put to the audience and to our now more expansive panel. So, in the pre-show, 10th Man and I were discussing the heliocentric model and potential benefits that control structure has. And it doesn't necessarily have to relate to you, Joe Normal, or anybody else for that matter. Just a specific example. The only one we came up with in the pre-show is that, well, the people who are out there punting the just so stories and calling them science, well, they're keeping food on the table as a direct result of that. But that was pretty much the only one we came up with, right? Can anybody else who's in Discord or in the G Plus panel, or even in the audience, if you want to, I may not see your words go by, but there we go. If I do, I'll read them out. But what are the benefits of what we just typically label in a very negative way, the heliocentric deception? Are there some overriding benefits that there might be to actually having this paradigm foisted upon us?
Can I ask you to define benefits? Is it only applying to those who believe the model, or is it applying to us as well?
Reapplying to anybody.
Okay.
Well, the benefit would be uniformity and more easier control. If people, it's the basic cornerstone of any old priesthood. It is you as a priest are in the know. Your subjects are not in the know, and therefore you can steer them in directions that they cannot foresee. That's it.
Is this, sorry, nipped away, is this for the person or the state you're talking benefits?
Now you've got to the crux of it. That's what I'm saying. Either. So if you can say, well, the benefit to the state is, hopefully without it being deeply negative towards the people at the same time, which is how it seemed to sway when we were talking about it earlier, or when 10th Man and I were talking about it earlier. So yeah, you can feel free. What are the benefits? Because it might be that, to have a system that's organised and kept under control, you've got to have some control, and this is just one of those means, right? I'm just giving an example so you can expand on it, Adam.
For me, I'd answer from the individual, and I'd say from the individual's point of view, the attractiveness of the heliocentric model is its moral placement. It allows and permits you to behave in a way that has no consequence, that you're here once, you live once, enjoy it, don't worry about any of the effects of your behavior. It's irrelevant because we're just a collection of atoms. So for me, it allows you to not deal with the spiritual. It gives you succor to say, I don't need to worry about that. There is no consequence of that because of the heliocentric model.
So what you're saying is it enables nihilism. So rejection of beliefs and values in the belief that it's all meaningless, basically.
No, I'm saying for the individual, it gives comfort in that nihilism because it says it's okay. You don't need to do it. You don't need to worry. Even though you're feeling this is wrong. Why do I know the difference between right and wrong? It doesn't matter. You can behave like this because at the end of it, there's only you. There is no consequence. So it allows you to not deal with yourself and justifies you not dealing with it. So you've done something bad to that day. Do you correct it? No, I don't have to, because fundamentally the whole premise of where we live and the purpose of life is nothingness. There is no consequence because it's heliocentric. You're just a jumble of atoms that somehow has managed to think.
So,
But
like
how is
Tyler,
that a benefit? It's just a big pitfall.
Because
You don't have to answer to nobody.
there you go.
Yeah, but that's freedom without consequences.
But not even yourself. Do you understand? You can easily bin God, can't you? But actually, to constantly keep ignoring yourself, there has to be an ability to. If you believe in God, it's hard to keep ignoring the bad things you do, isn't it? But if you can keep saying to yourself, there is no consequences to it, it doesn't matter. I might feel bad about it, but there's no other effects. Then it allows you to carry on and not reflect and not improve and not have a purpose of your own life.
Yeah, I get you, because this is paralleled when I say that people who come to this realization and therefore it would infer that you'd have to relinquish this nihilism, then you suddenly start to identify the skeletons in the closet that you didn't want to identify until that point. And you've spun that around and say, well, as a benefit, you can stick those skeletons in the closet and not really worry about them. Okay, excellent. That's a definite benefit for having this nihilistic worldview where you're in an infinite super nothingness, expanding into nothing, and the world is meaningless. Because we're just a little dot, and it doesn't really matter. Any other benefits? Nihilism, good one. I like it, Adam. Any other?
That applies to Dr. Michelle Thaler, when she says we are a chemical reaction. Simply, a chemical reaction that became so complex that we became sentient. That's adorable.
That's why she can just go around sleeping with other rocks and stones and whether that's a girl rock or boy rock with no consequence. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
I was going to say that, but the other thing is, how can, please explain this to me, how can pure chemical reactions make any kind of truth claim? Please explain.
You've been met with a stunned silence there, Paul.
How can chemical reactions have a conscience?
Well, think about it though. If it were all just nothing but chemical reactions, nothing but atoms bumping into each other, your chemical reaction is no different than mine. So I can make a statement of any kind. I'm just some sound coming out of this chemical reaction. How do I know that's true? Or if you're saying something chemical reaction is occurring in your existence, how do I know what you're saying is true? Because it's just a bunch of chemical reactions occurring. How do you determine truth, and how do you can make a truth claim?
You're describing knowledge and the supernatural versus the physical. If you're just going to boil it all down to chemical reactions, then there is no knowing, is there? That supernatural doesn't exist, can't be described, isn't qualified, and isn't physical.
Right. So the benefit of having this mentality is anything goes, and whoever has the strongest chemical reaction wins. That's the benefit.
It sounds very
Well, that's
beneficial for those who lack empathy.
That's very much like the survival of the fittest.
Yeah, this is a psychopathic world that we live in. It's orchestrated by psychopathic types. Any other benefits to the heliocentric deception? The lies of the sky vacuum or the spinning sphere?
Just one more to what I said. This is what allowed Mao and Stalin and all those of the same ilk to kill millions upon millions of people without a conscience, because they're just no consequence, chemical reaction, and we have the better idea. We're stronger, so the weak must die.
I would suggest the opposite. I think people like that are highly religious, not of the correct type of religion, but highly religious people that commit those sorts of things.
Maybe
In that context, I would agree with you.
I'm going to phrase it slightly more personally to people who are in the Discord server. So even if you're not necessarily a Glober now, upon turning to the dark side, as viewed by Globeheads, i.e. realising the obvious observable nature of your reality, what did you feel potentially that you'd lost? In other words, you could spin that into, well, that was a benefit I had that I don't have anymore. Anybody at all? We're looking for bonus benefits of the globe. I'm trying to find some small morsel to offer back to our opponents in terms of what they benefit from having this belief.
It's very patriotic
Hold on.
to be a Glober.
Go ahead, Sinclair. Say it again.
Like when NASA was starting off, they wanted to go to the moon initially, so NASA got a lot of funding, so it brought the country together. It was an act of patriotism to tune in and watch NASA do all their TV cartoon stunts, right? So it was serving your country by buying a NASA T-shirt, I guess.
Okay, so you're saying there's a certain patriotism, as you described it, sense of community maybe, that is achieved by having a unified goal, in this case, the lie of going to space.
Similar to like a religion, yeah. Which, ironically, it has a lot more similarities to religion, but yeah.
I don't want to pass what Adam said. Adam, say what you said. I'd be chuckling.
Well, I'm just checking, does satellite TV count?
No. There is no satellite TV. Satellite TV's name only, Adam. There are no satellites in the presupposed orbit. Any other benefits? Shout out to Al Junkie for the super chat. Someone joined as a member earlier and I forgot to shout them out, and now I can't scroll back far enough to see who it was. I think it was Rob. Thank you very much for the super chat, Al Junkie, who says, Hash 1 advantage. Heliocentric model has created FED. Excellent.
I just want to say, Adam, I liked it, but your satellite TV didn't get much of a reception from others.
Boom, boom. Any more? I've not read many things from the chat. Maybe the chat feed would like to tell us, if you're a globehead, which is more likely in the chat feed. I've kept the chat open to the public today. So, what is the benefits? Give us a few from the chat if you're a globe believer. Tell us how it benefits you specifically. If you can give us an example, that'd be even better. The globe benefits me because... I'll add while the chat's completely ceased to say a word, of course.
We're all just thinking, just kind of racking your brain, even if something's sarcastic, Nathan, and it's difficult.
Someone touched on this earlier, but I think it might have been Arwin. But the fantastical nature of it is a benefit. In other words, I did feel a deep sense of loss when coming to the subject because of some of the fantasy that he had to relinquish. I still sense that now because in the community that we've described earlier, that benefit, they all enjoy the suspension of disbelief when it comes to the globe. They don't have to suspend disbelief when it comes to that part of a narrative within a movie. I do and can't. So I get alienated from the production and therefore I don't want to participate anymore. Well, that's definitely a downside. It's because the general Crowley public are all subject to the same mass mind control. They're all under the belief that they're on a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum, and therefore when they see that represented in movie form, it doesn't cause any cognitive pain because it's not real. To them it is. So that's a benefit. Keeping in line with the status quo has certain cognitive benefits in terms of if you just go along, then you don't have to disagree. And disagreeing isn't necessarily a painless process.
How about ego?
Ego?
Yeah. Two levels. The first point, just your standard ego. The more facts you digest, the cleverer you can appear. But also just your subconscious ego. You don't like not knowing. Man naturally wants to know. Okay, and as we all kind of have realized, we're happy to believe any old story if it makes us feel knowledgeable, even if we have to have a bit of distance, ignore some of the contradictions. We like feeling like we know, and it's natural for us to want to be able to understand the world around us. So to be given any explanation, again, gives you a sense of comfort, but also knowledge, and therefore panders to ego.
Al Junkie says, love getting high, so prefer helium-centric model. Jolly good. I completely agree, Adam. Yes, that's definitely a benefit. Having explanations.
It depends on how much that explanation makes sense to you. Because even when I was a kid, the moon being a rock that somebody brought a car to and drove around on, that never made sense. And today, the fact that I'm not forced to believe that as my reality, that feels so much better. I don't care if it's not an explanation or if it's literally the opposite of an explanation. It's literally not knowing, but I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with somebody's cool story is being touted to me as my reality. That's where that shit has to stop. That's how I feel.
I'm glad you've given
probably a good example, Chocolate, because you think of the number of people at school that are happy to trade that balance for the ego, for the peace of mind. I'll put those contradictions, that nonsense, and accept it because it gives me knowledge of the world around me, status, because I can repeat those facts. But actually, that's part of the game of how they collude us into accepting the contradictions.
But we are different folks, though. Chocolate and I are very similar in this regard, in respect that not knowing is better. But that's not true for a lot of people. In fact, I would say, sweeping generalization, the majority of people would prefer to have explanations that they can then not worry about.
I like to add to that. Look at the movies out, the context of the movies, the spin-offs from comic books. All of them have to do with there's more out there. We can go outside of Earth and find other Earths and explore. So man becomes the head of everything. You don't hear, except maybe by chance, somebody reading a piece of scripture or giving the creator some praise of any kind anymore. But it's man can do it. It's all about us going. And so I think that's a benefit for them to exalt man over who made man.
Any more for any more? Try and think of things that you see as negative now that could potentially be positive when you were back on the globe or reifying the sphere model. Anyone in Discord? There's literally nothing. No, not one single. This is a bonus of being a globe head. Not one from the chat stream. Not one. Maybe more high expectations from Discord, we shall see. Come on, you've got to be able to give me some globe benefits.
Well, relief. It's relief, relinquishment of understanding and responsibility morally. It provides relief against the heavy reality of the world.
Yeah, that's right. Daddy State or Daddy Scientist has got it all figured out. I don't need to worry about it, like the guy who came on the other week. The people in charge know better, and I don't need to know about it. I don't need to concern myself about it. Well, concern, that sounds very negative. Well, they've concerned themselves with it, so I don't have to. Yeah, good. That's another definite benefit. The consensus says this. Well, I don't need to worry about it then.
Exactly.
Anyone else? Discord, hopefully. Get some new voices on the subject. Globe benefits.
Go on, it's all linked, isn't it? For you to be comfortable in that model and you can carry on your life. You're using that there. You're using, I suppose, what's the you're using oh bloody hell, I forgot I'll come back to me, Nathan. Give me
okay, well, I'll throw in another one. The productivity level.
You're using the power of using the power of the authority, yeah, not your own knowledge, but just somebody else telling you to again give you comfort in that zone that it's all okay. It's okay. It's another little bit of cushioning from reality that you use. There's no real validity to it, but you use it once again to just reaffirm the paradigm to stay there. Oh, somebody else says it. So they, as you said, they've confirmed it. They've checked it out. So I don't have to. It must be true.
Well, another benefit for the state, I suppose, is that if people aren't concerning themselves with such things, then they're more productive. In other words, if your robot that's building a car is concerned about whether or not it's going to get an oil change and then stops and has a little check on the oil level, well, it's less productive. Well, if your little worker bee human being is concerned about whether or not the sky's a vacuum or whether or not you've got a molten iron core or what's beneath the ground, to be a more descriptive on topic, I wonder what's beneath me. Well, if you're worrying about what's beneath you, you're not bashing this bit of metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or not bashing it fast enough.
And you're also not concerned about having to wear a diaper on your face either.
Yeah, you don't need to concern yourself with these things. We've got it all figured out for you. So, get on with what you've been assigned to do at your indoctrination centre, aka school. You've been trained how to be productive, so be productive. What's that? You're not trained in philosophy and reification, so don't worry about it. Just listen to the Just So story from this department, and you can get on with your life and be far more productive. And then die. And someone else will fill your shoes and be just as productive, so long as they're not concerning themselves with whether or not the sky is a vacuum. We've got people to worry about that. Yeah, it's control. I mean, as much as I'm trying to spin this in a positive manner, ultimately it boils down to...
look at. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head there, Nathan. Look what's happening now with shadow banning, powers to be not wanting this group to get their message out. It's crosses every facet at this point.
Yeah, but I'm putting the opposite spin on it. So in the example I gave you in the pre-show, I was giving an audio expert that's basically showing that certain technologies have reached a pinnacle and therefore spending more money on them doesn't benefit you. Well, that doesn't necessarily help the manufacturer of that high-end piece of gear that's worth a lot of money. So it's in some ways beneficial to censor that person because it helps the productivity and advancement of certain industries where one man could potentially bring a halt to progress. well, that can expand out into very positive things in terms of the progression. Whereas somebody stifling it because there isn't any progression to be made by way of a demonstration in his field isn't necessarily productive.
Hey, Brian's here.
Hey, Brian. Got one more presentation from Adam by the looks of things.
Oh, yeah, I knew you were going to end in a bit, and I know we've been talking about John Deere. Just wanted to give him another shout out.
Hey, Brian.
I'd read that slide as a before you end, because I thought it's better than the waffle I've done, which I think it summarises quite nicely. Kind of the point that the overreaching point that John's making.
Indeed. Did you want to just read out a couple of sections of it, or maybe read out the full text?
I'll read it. So it was the conclusion to part 2 motion and the reification of energy was: we witness motion with our senses. We measure and quantify motion. We do not observe energy or force with our senses. In an attempt to understand the motion that is observed, a story has been created that contains fictitious elements, namely force and energy, that have been reified. These non-observable and non-provable imaginary elements of force and energy have been generated in mathematical formulas, quantified, and then further applied. This has led to the construction of a paradigm that is leading to the misunderstanding and preventing appropriate questioning concerning the nature of our reality. That summarises it well.
It does.
Thanks.
Yes, another big shout out to Dr. John D. Go and subscribe today. Brian, did you want to get a few words in before we go off air and go to the after show and ask everyone to stay tuned?
No, not in particular, Nathan. Just that if you were a Glober, that George and Tim would be your friends. So that'd be a benefit, I suppose.
I didn't quite make out what you said. Can you say it once more?
I'm just saying that if you were a Glober, then George and Tim would be your friends. Netchuk and Clown.
Timmy Clown and George Netchuk could be your friend if you're a globehead. I see. You've got the yeah, that falls under community. I see what you're saying. You get the bonus of having Timmy Clown and George Netanyuk as your buddies if you're a globehead. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Be sure to check out Nathan Oakley 1980, my second channel, as there will be an epic uncut and after show going out at about 9 PM UK time tomorrow. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on either the Premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.